The romance turned tragedy that some say plunged the whole world into war. Before we begin, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos. On January 30th, 1889, the bodies of Crown Prince Rudolf of Austria-Hungary and his mistress, Baroness Marie Vetsera, were discovered in a tragedy of global proportions. The loss rocked the imperial family to its core, and they, along with the rest of the world, were left wondering, what happened? Even decades later, experts still debate why these two high-profile figures died, and if their demise really caused the start of World War I. Before we begin, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos. From the moment the 30-year-old royal and his lover, 13 years his junior, were found dead in bed at the hunting lodge in Mayerling, Austria, everyone was stunned. Not only was his death untimely, but Crown Prince Rudolf was also the heir to the throne. Right off the bat, it was obvious that this was no accident. In fact, there were some specifics about the crime scene that painted a complicated story. But there wasn't time to sort out the details. No matter what happened, this was a serious scandal for the imperial family, but not necessarily one that had come without warning signs. Prior to his death, Crown Prince Rudolf wasn't exactly the royal example that his father, Franz Joseph, hoped he'd be. The source of the tension? They were total political opposites. The emperor, a strict traditionalist, was in stark opposition to his son, a critical progressive. Ultimately, Prince Rudolf felt his father disapproved of him, and his lifestyle choices didn't improve matters. The Crown Prince began seeing Baroness Marie Vetsera in 1888, but there was one glaring problem. He was married. Despite having a wife, Princess Stephanie of Belgium, and daughter at home, the royal wasn't shy about his rampant playboy lifestyle. He engaged in numerous affairs, though that was only one of his many problems. With a revolving door of lovers, Crown Prince Rudolf contracted STDs. It's believed he had either syphilis or gonorrhea, but whichever he passed along to his wife, rendering her infertile. He was also heavily addicted to morphine. It's no surprise that his extreme and indulgent lifestyle was the mask of a depressed person. As the young Baroness, her involvement with Rudolf was rather new. Some accounts say their fling lasted 3 months, while others say 3 years. Just like the timeline, opinions on the seriousness of Rudolf's affections vary. This was further complicated by the fact that he was also seeing another woman on the side, an actress named Mitzi Casper. So it was with a great mixture of horror and urgency to control the narrative that the imperial family handled the bloody death scene. At a glance, there were 2 bodies lying on the bed, appearing to have succumbed to gunshot wounds. But as to how and why Prince Rudolf and Marie Vetsera were killed, there were several theories. Some people suspected the killings were enacted on behalf of German agents, looking to silence Prince Rudolf for his vocal anti-German position. If this scenario were true, Marie Vetsera was killed simply for her proximity to the royal, a tragic case of the wrong place at the wrong time. However, several factors of the scene contradicted that. Medical professionals observed that Baroness Marie Vetsera died long before Prince Rudolf. Given that fact, some suggested a rather grim situation played out, where Vetsera died as the result of an abortion gone wrong. It's been theorized Rudolf ended his life in a final act of heartbreak. Still, there was one clue on Vetsera's person that was too intentional to ignore. In the hands of the young woman, they found a wilted, blood-covered rose. Had she known the end was coming? Or was that prop added by a murderer? Given the context, the family quickly believed Rudolf and Marie knew they were about to meet their end, and they had a theory of how the tragic end unfolded. Rudolf's other mistress, Mitzi Casper, came forward to say he had proposed a suicide pact to her only a month prior. Based on that unsettling information, it's most widely accepted that he asked Marie Vetsera to do the same. The family scrambled to cover up the PR catastrophe the best they could, hoping to stem any potential backlash. As described by author and historian Frederick Morton in his book A Nervous Splendor Vienna, 1888 to 1889, there were immediate efforts to remove every trace of the Baroness Marie Vetsera. While the agent drew up the document, the physician washed caked blood from the corpse. Then it was dressed in coat and hat, in boa, veil, and shoes. It was stood up. The two uncles linked arms with their niece and walked her slowly out into the night, past any possible suspicious eyes, through the howling winds, past Rudolf's barking dogs, to Count Stacco's carriage. A hearse would, of course, have given too much away. Morton's book continued. Instead, Vetsera was quickly buried in a cemetery chosen only for its proximity. Then there was the matter of explaining how Crown Prince Rudolf died, since the truth of his death drastically complicated matters further. If word got out that it was a suicide, the late prince wouldn't be allowed a Catholic burial in the imperial vaults, per tradition. Eventually, the family came clean about the suspected suicide to the church, claiming the prince had only done so in a deranged state of mind. No public mention of Baroness Marie Vetsera's death was made. Her family reburied her shortly after, replacing her hastily chosen wooden coffin for one made of copper. But sadly, her rest would be disturbed several more times. Marie Vetsera's remains were targeted by grave robbers several times throughout the decades, most recently in 1991. After 2 years, though, the famed crypt thief Helmut Flatziner was discovered as the culprit, and her remains were returned to their gravesite. As for more recent attempts, according to reporting by the Los Angeles Times, the family has refused all recent investigative endeavors to exhume her body. Since Prince Rudolf was heir to the throne, his untimely death posed a major problem for Austro-Hungarian succession. It devastated his parents, Emperor Franz Joseph, and particularly Elizabeth of Bavaria, who had long battled depression. While they grieved, they still had to sort out the looming crisis of who would run the empire. Luckily, Emperor Franz had a brother. The Emperor of Austria's younger brother, Archduke Karl Ludwig, was the next in line, though his claim to the throne was made murky by false rumors that he'd renounced his position. Sadly, Karl never had the opportunity to really step into his own reign. He died of typhoid 7 years after his nephew Rudolf in 1896. Next, they looked to Karl Ludwig's son, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, but that ended just as catastrophically. As you might remember from history class, the assassination of Archduke and his wife in 1914 was a catalyst for World War I. But even after the Austro-Hungarian ruler sparked the war, the families of Rudolf and Marie Vetsera kept quiet about all the evidence surrounding their deaths. It turned out that both families had proof to substantiate the suicide pact for decades. In 1926, letters written by Marie Vetsera to her family were discovered, hidden away in a bank safety deposit box. As the teen wrote plainly in a letter to her mother, "I am happier in death than I was in life." Sadly, the high-profile death of Rudolf and the subsequent scandal wasn't the only one to hit the Austro-Hungarian imperial family. For many years, Rudolf's mother, Empress Elizabeth Sissi of Austria, was in a crumbling mental health state. Even early on, her friction with her position gave the royals cause for concern. Born in 1837, Sissi was from Munich in the German state of Bavaria. Her childhood sounds beautiful. She spent her youth playing in the Bavarian woods with her 7 siblings. They'd ride horses and climb the nearby mountains. This peace wouldn't last. Please share this story with your friends and family.